the Minnesota Wild podcast, presented by Acrisure.
John, just starting the series on the road with how successful the team was as the visitor all season. I mean, I know it's a new season, the second season, but can you draw on any of that? And what were the hallmarks that made you guys so top as the road team?
Yeah, I mean, we've been good on the road all year, and I just think our guys, they I think we come together. We understand how we need to play, home or on the road. But I think our focus level on the road this year has been really good, and I think that's just attributed to. We get on the road, I think the guys are together, and it seems as though when we get into the games, we have a strong focus level of the details and the competitive nature that we need to be good.
Why is it important to leave today versus tomorrow?
Well, we just felt to start the series we had a pretty good practice yesterday, so we were going to have kind of a recovery travel day today, and then give us an opportunity to get in and get set up tomorrow, practice there. And then, and when we were originally making the schedule, we weren't totally sure what time the game was going to be. But regardless of that, we thought to start the series to get out there, get focused, be able to have a good practice there, and not travel the day before the game.
John, Krill said he's still a little bit rusty coming back, and it's probably just his high standard for how he wants to play. But just what have you seen from his game overall since he's been back from the injury?
Yeah, I mean, Kirill does have high standards of himself, and which is what makes him a great player. But I think he looks good. I know for him there's certain elements in his game that he feels could be at a higher level, but I've seen, he's got the same competitive nature. I think his details are getting good. A lot of times when you're off for that long, you understand how you want to play, but then in live game action, I just think, the details, the reads, the timing, I think they're getting better and better.
Is there any time management or load management with him? I know you're going to have to basically yank him off the ice. He's so excited to be back, but is there anything you guys need to be cognizant of?
Yeah, I mean, we spoke with him about that prior to coming back from the injury, and I think he's done a good job lately here, whether he's gone on for an optional skate. I think he's, he does like to skate. He feels better to do that, but just the time of it and then what you're doing with it. So I think once we get into the series, we had a good practice yesterday. Today, obviously, he didn't skate. Tomorrow we'll skate, and then you monitor that. And then I think once we get into the series, it'll be, day by day and but you also have to trust. You're working in concert with the player. You have to trust that you have to allow him to get what he feels he needs to be on task for the games. But it's also, understanding the intensity level of this time of year as well.
I was going to say, you have to kind of balance that, right? Because it is the playoffs and it's winter, go home, essentially,
yes.
right?
Yeah. I mean, you'd rather tame a tiger, right? So that's a good thing.
And he said he feels like he's only played 41 games, so that's not many players can say that at game 83, that they felt that they physically feel like they've only played half a season.
Yeah, I think that's a benefit probably for Eki and Kirill, just that they hadn't, they were off for a long period of time. Now that time isn't easy. But you're still not, they had their own issues that they had to deal with. But I think the rigors of the season and the miles that get put on as you go through 82 games. So, hopefully that can help those guys in the series.
What's that arena like when it gets rocking? And they built their little tradition now. They've been in the league long enough. What's it like from that standpoint on the playoff atmosphere?
It's loud. It's really. I mean, it's loud in the regular season. They have. The sound. I mean, it's what you would think a Vegas game was like, right? There's a lot of entertainment. There's a lot of things going on. It's really loud. Just in my experiences, I think that if you take whatever building you played in the regular season, as loud as that building is in the regular season, it's louder and more intense, and the atmosphere is up a notch or two from the regular season, regardless of where you play.
What do you see in Eriksson's personality? We talked about him a little bit yesterday, just how valuable he can be, especially in a playoff situation. What do you see in his personality that allows him to kind of be that utility man, like whatever role you need?
Well, I think he's very businesslike. He's a highly competitive guy. I think he takes pride in being the player that he is. He's an intense competitor. He knows how to play and is willing to play in the hard areas of the ice. He takes pride, I think, at the power play on the net front, and not just at the net front, but puck retrievals and allowing second and third opportunities on the power play. 5-on-5, because of his competitive nature. I think he welcomes the matchups against top players, and then you have him on the penalty kill. So he's in every area for us. But my experience with him, he's away from the game, he's kind of relaxed. He's got a good personality, but when you see him when I see him training or practice or in the games, it's pretty businesslike.
Yeah, do you get that kind of playoff grit out of him too, as well? Nicest guy in the world off the ice, but
Yeah. I mean, he's got that. He's got that personality. Like, he's all business when it comes to his profession, and it's good to see. But that allows him, to be the consistent, reliable, tough player to play against that he is.
John, we often see goaltenders get relied on often when the playoffs start a little bit more and more. Where's Gus's mentality in terms of what you see from him in terms of welcoming the embracing kind of the challenge and having more responsibility in the playoff series?
Yeah, I think leading up to this is a benefit for Gus. It wasn't something where we got off to the start we had and then we cruised through the season. We had to win some games down the stretch. It was playoff intensity for us. I mean, we had to win games. We had to continue. Teams were really pushing from behind with us. We had some head-to-head matchups. We relied on him heavily. So I think the experience of him playing consistent, playing well, finding a way to be the main guy through that process and getting the job done, I think has set him up to be ready to go.
You think it's difficult for teams to prepare for you guys now because you've entered this different phase with a different roster at the end of the year?
I don't necessarily know if it's harder to prepare. I mean, in today's day and age, with the amount of coaches, the video that we have, and how teams are going to play. I think it comes down to each team's going to try to execute what they feel is going to give them the best chance to win the game, and then it usually comes down in playoff series to the battle level, the intensity. Players making key plays at key times. That's ultimately, if you ice the best game that you can play, those are usually the differences in the game.
Has Brazeau settled into the role that you would have envisioned him taking on more games he's played?
I think Braz
I
think Braz has done a good job. He's playing a 9 through 12 role, and he's using his body. He's big and strong. I think he's playing a fast game. We asked him. I know last year in the playoffs with the Bruins, he was very effective in playoff hockey, and that was one of the reasons why we looked to get him down the stretch when we made the move. And then just those attributes that he can play with. We need him to be. His size needs to be a factor. That means when there's an opportunity to be physical, he needs to be physical, be strong on the puck, in the offensive zone, kind of a grind line type of player, and he's done a nice job of that.
Without giving away a lot of secrets, when you're scouting in Vegas, what do you see from them on tape that you say, we're going to have to figure that out?
Yeah, well, I think first and foremost, they're a pretty strong defensive structured team. They have, I think one of the bigger decors in the league, and I think when you look at their defensive numbers, they're a team that I think is responsible without it. And then from an offensive perspective, they have high-end talent, and they can hit you in multiple ways. They got some talent where they can do some things off the rush, but I think their forecheck and their offensive zone presence is something that's a factor as well.
Faceoffs are a big area for them too. They've been very successful in the dog.
Faceoffs are going to be a big factor in this series. I think in the regular season they're obviously one of the better teams in the league, and we're not. So that's something that we're going to have to pay attention to and monitor and dig in on.
This time of year, a lot of the top players is when they shine. The McDavids, the McKinnons, Eichel did it for Vegas on their run. You have one of those guys, and obviously with Kirill, how much difference in a series can that kind of a guy make, in going forward?
Yeah, it makes a big difference. You need big time players to be, big time players at the most intense time of the year, which is in the playoffs. So, we have several guys I think in that category, and we're going to need those guys to be at their competitive best. And then I also think from a team perspective, even when you look at the playoffs, you're going to have your big minute guys. They're going to have the matchups against the other. So you have that battle within itself. And then I also think the depth in your lineup. Your 5-6 defensemen, your 9 through 12 forwards, the impact that they can have on a game and in a series as well.
John, do you already have in mind the game one lineup, or is everything you need to see tomorrow that might change your mind any last minute guys coming in around?
I have a good idea of what we're going to do. There might be one or two decisions to make, but other than that, it's pretty much set.
You told us you'd have a better answer about William tomorrow. Any change in that timeline, or we wait until tomorrow?
Tomorrow. Good try, though.
Yeah, I like it.
I'll see you tomorrow.
All right. See you guys.
For an extraordinary advantage in sports, you need a game plan. For an extraordinary advantage everywhere else, all you need is Acrisure. With a high-tech human approach to insurance, cybersecurity, and more, Acrisure helps you take care of what you care about. That makes winning easy. See what Acrisure's extraordinary advantage can do for you at Acrisure.com.